Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Hypercar Hunt. And today we are joined with a very special guest, the LPI 800-4 Lamborghini Countach. Something a little bit controversial when it came out in 2021, but today we're going to have a little look into the car, see if it's just an Aventador or if it could be something special. Now, I remember when this was launched in 2021, and as one of my favourite cars and as a fellow owner of a Lamborghini Countach, this wasn't exactly my first cup of tea, because there are arguably a lot of things that Lamborghini could have done to make this a little bit more Countach-y. But the more I think about it and the more I spent time studying the car, the more I realised that they couldn't just make one Countach that fits all. See, there was numerous Countachs back in the day. You had the 5000 QV, you had the 25th anniversary, you had the Periscopio. They had to try and get increments and little bits from each car. So we've sort of got to work from the front and then go all the way to the back of the car and go through each bit that I think they've incorporated some clever design work. When this car was launched, the first thing I thought was, why is there no pop-up headlights? Like a lot of people, obviously safety reasons. But what they have done, which I've noticed whilst looking around this car, which I quite like, is they've added this boomerang shape into the front end. And what it's done is it's left a bit of a weird square just here. Weird square, you may say. That's not very specific, but that is the exact shape of the pop-up headlights on the original Countach. So you'd have the normal lights and then the pop-ups just here. Now on the Countach, what they have done, which I rather like, is they've shaped the bonnet in like, not quite a square, but almost triangular shape pointing towards the driver, which is exactly like it was on the original Countach. What they have done though, which I'm guessing they've had to do for safety, is invert the operation. So where it used to open this way, it now opens this way. We pull the lever, which is quite tricky to get to on this, and it does open vertically. On the front end of the Countach then, they've got these rather cool, still square designed headlights, but on the internals, a very nice modern flair to it. They look pretty cool. Now, if you're a fan of seeing where you're going, I'd recommend checking out today's sponsor, Auto LED. See, whether you're wanting to upgrade your normal bulbs to LED bulbs, or if you want your indicators upgrading, or your brake lights, or your bedroom lights, or whatever they may be, I'd genuinely recommend checking out Auto LED. I use them, my friends use them, and hell, you should use them too. And if you do plan on using them, check out their website down in the link below, and use code ZG10 for 10% off your order. And yeah, take a look, because they do bulbs for almost every car. Hell, they might even do a Countach bulb. There are endless bits from this car taken from the old school Countach design-wise, but one of my favourite things are the wheels. See, on the old school Countachs, you had 5 big holes. Well, I see 5 big holes, and it very clearly resembles the original wheel. But then what Lamborghini have done is they've taken those holes and designed a really beautiful rim around it. So, perfect example, you've got the old school design and the new school feel. You've also got really cool details, such as this Lamborghini wording on the wing mirror in bronze, which I think is just such a cool thing. Annoyingly, they don't do that to the other cars, but that's just mega. Now you may be thinking, Zach, what's your favourite part of this whole car? Well, it has to be this really big triangle. That's for one of 2 reasons. One is it is the most Countach design aspect of this entire car, I believe. And the other is because one of my things that I find hysterical about the old school Countach is the fuel filler cap used to be in here, and it used to be impossible to get to. They've now moved it up there, and they've made it quite an intricate thing. The fuel filling system on this is a little bit intricate. You can tell me whether you like it, you hate it, tell me down in the comments below. But in order to fill this car up, first of all, you press this bronze ring, sounds a bit rude, pop it open, that lifts up. That's not the fuel filler cap. Then you unscrew this and you lift it off, and that is your fuel filler cap. Now, know what you're wondering? Can you take the fuel filler cap off without moving this? No, you can't. Why? Not too sure, but it does look very cool, so maybe that's why. Now, on the 5000 QV Countach, you had 4 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting. Very clever way of looking back at the older car, but those vents were horizontal. These are vertical. Vertical, just like the Countach 25th anniversary. So somehow, just in this segment alone, they've combined 2 older Countachs and still somehow made this thing look modern. Some call it chance, some call it design. You guys can decide. But on the 25th anniversary, on the rear of the car, the brake lights, there are 3 squares, 3 different colors. You've got the inner one being the reverse light, then you've got the brake light and the headlights. But on this, you've also got 3 lights. Now the reason why I say chance, Lamborghini Cyan, obviously what this car is based off of, has the exact same lights. I know I keep banging on about this car being a Countach, but well, it is, and the Countach name holds a lot of value. 4 exhaust pipes. Now, a lot of modern cars end up combining the exhausts into 1 or 2 big holes. Lamborghini have taken inspiration from the old school Countaches with their 4 exhaust pipes, and well, you've got them here, which I really rather like. You've also got some very subtle badging just down in the grille there saying the word Countach. But while we're back here, I think we'd better have a look at the powertrain. Now this Countach is effectively a Cyan underneath it. As much as it has a full carbon body, it also has the same 6.5 litre naturally aspirated hybrid V12 that features the hybrid motors which act as a turbo boost between shifting, which also makes the gears smoother, because as everyone knows, well, the gearbox on the Aventador wasn't too great, but this isn't an Aventador, it is a Cyan, and technically a Cyan is a generation of an Aventador. We're going to leave that, we're leaving it, but power-wise, 803 brake horsepower and a 217 mile/hour top speed. 770 horsepower coming from the naturally aspirated V12 and the rest coming from the hybrid batteries. Doors, a very important thing on the Countach, on the Diablo, on the Murcielago, they've all got one thing, scissor doors. Now, unfortunately, scissor doors aren't allowed nowadays, but they did take the same door from the Aventador and from the Cyan. One thing I do love is how thick this part is here, which means when you go to grab for the door handle, your hand instantly gets it. Now, because the whole body is carbon fiber, everything feels so incredibly light, whether it be from popping the rear bonnet that quite literally pops open, the door, the front bonnet, it could be anything, but it is all so lightweight. One of my favorite parts about the whole Countach has to be the interior. This thing is about as white as it gets. Looks like Scarface had an accident in here. But what they have done is this brand new, unique to this car, stitching all over the car, whether it be on the headliner, on the seats, on the doors, on the dash. It's just mega cool. They've even used open style stitching on the dash, which is such a retro design. They could have made it look a lot neater, but that's not how the original Countach was. Yet you definitely don't think it's messy in here. Now, I know it's still got the original Aventador steering wheel. It's a bugbear of mine as well, but what it does have is the new updated dash, very similar to the Cyan, looks very futuristic, and ironically, when you lift up this passage back here, you still have a 12-volt cigarette lighter, and to be honest, who doesn't want to smoke in their Countach? Maybe the new one, maybe not, but in the old one, it's kind of cool. You've also got this new center console dash with the big touchscreen LCD screen, which gets rid of a bit more of the Audi stuff that did lurk around in the older Lamborghinis. You've got the air conditioning system and the heating system, which I'm used to personally, but to a newcomer, it may be tricky. But let's face it, if you're a newcomer to a brand new multi-million-pound Countach, you can learn the air conditioning system. You still have the rocker switches that go all along the front here, very similar to the Aventador. Obviously, you guys need to remember, for homologation purposes, cars have to have some similarities, because otherwise, let's say they want to have completely new window switches, it's not just changing a switch, it's going through testing, it's doing this, it's doing that, it's a lot of work. Now, in terms of usability on the inside, storage is kept to a minimal. Now, you do have the space in the front, obviously, but inside here, just like on the Aventadors and the previous Lamborghinis, you've got a fairly sizable glove locker, you've got a little portion here which doesn't really hold your phone. You do have a nice section here which would hold your phone, maybe a wallet, things like that. There's nothing in the door cards, so on the interior wise, it is a bit scarce. So then the hard task of dividing it into 4 categories: usability, desirability, value and performance. Well, first of all, as always, let's start off with usability, starting at the front. It's not too bad, it's not great, but it really isn't too bad. So we're going to give this a strong 5.5 out of 10. Well then, performance, the key factor in buying any hypercar, and she's not the fastest horse out of the gate. We're dealing in 250-mile-an-hour cars, and this thing is struggling to break 220. Well, it doesn't, it does 217. 803 brake horsepower, it's a lot of power, but what Lamborghini do offer is a lot of entertainment. It's a lot of pops, it's a lot of bangs, it's a big V12, it's a lot of fun. But performance-wise, we've got to be straight, we've got to be honest with what it is. Under 3 seconds to 60, 2.8, still quick. That 0 to 60 time is very fast. So we're going to rate this a 6.5 out of 10. Desirability then, almost the most important factor in any hypercar buying experience. Desirability then, 112 units have been made of this Countach. Admittedly, it's the first time I've seen one up in close. So interestingly, I think they are rare. 112 units in the grand scheme of things is very low. Chiron 500, I mean Jesko 125. So I would say it is pretty desirable, and from a manufacturer who make thousands of cars a year. You know, you're talking, God knows how many Aventadors there were. You know, I wouldn't even want to imagine how many Hurricanes there were. This is very unique, and I think in history, I think it'll take a bit of time to get to where it needs to be in terms of values, but in terms of desirability, I'm going to score it a 7.5 out of 10. Value. Well, £2.3 million. It's a tricky one, but I did promise you guys I'd always be honest. See, at £2.3 million, okay, it is a hypercar, but if you look at what it's capable of, there are faster cars that aren't in the hypercar category. So £2.3 million is a lot of money. Now, I believe, and I will stand by this, in years to come, maybe a few years down the line, that these values will start making more sense. But at the moment, I see 2.3 million at a bit of a stretch, and considering that we've got £3 million in the Regera, interesting swap. It could be, because if you think about the Lamborghinis we've got, 400 GT, one of the first Lamborghinis ever made. We've got the Miura, one of the most important. We've got the Countach, we've got the Aventador. This would fit very nicely in the lineup, and it's also the same color as the Aventador. So who knows? But in terms of value, I'm going to score it a 4 out of 10. The all-new Countach then. Design purposes, it's a blast from the past. An absolute thing of beauty. But I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on the car. So make sure to comment down below. And remember, at the end of this series, we are putting our money where our mouth is and buying one of the hypercars in this series. But until then, make sure you subscribe, don't miss an episode, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.